About what?
Basically, build the thing in the kasha.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where it is. Okay. It's about 60% down the page. If you look at the Rashi, if you have a Gemara which bolds the Gemara words that Rashi explains, it's right next to Harei Ze Yaharot. What?
Daf.
The same daf you did yesterday. Chaf Ches Amid Beis. Okay. All right. So the discussion was about the distinction between a Jewish court and a Roman court, a Goyish court. Okay.
Secular court.
A secular court. A Goyish court is a secular court. Well, okay. Meisvei. Kol makom she'amdu shnayim v'yomru. Two people come and they tell a Jewish court, me'idim anu, we are able to testify as ish pliny that so and so shenigmar dino bebeis dina shel pliny, that he was sentenced to death by such and such a Jewish court. Okay, uploni Aiden, and the Ada, and Reuven and Shimon were the witnesses who testified so he could be convicted. Harize Yaharog, and we know that he was put to death, that the din was granted, and he was convicted, and he was put to death. Okay, Yaharog, we consider he's dead. So okay, and therefore that, remember the issue on the table that you dealt with yesterday. If a Jewish court condemns someone to death and people come and say, we know all about it, he was put to death, the widow can remarry. But if a Goyish court does that, the widow cannot remarry until somebody can testify, I saw the dead body. So what's the difference? That's what we're dealing with.
What if we buried her?
What? Look, we have to do a blot and a half. Don't ask stupid questions, okay? I mean, what if he was buried already? Presumably, then you could find the gravestone. I mean, there could be you could find another individual who carried him from the cross that he was killed on to the grave. The idea is that with a Jewish court, simply saying, I know he was put to death is good enough. With a Goyish court, you need more. Okay?
Thank you.
So now, but Dilma Boreach Shaini. So there is the theoretical possibility. It doesn't really happen. But there is the theoretical possibility that a Jewish court, the Dayanim are supposed to, they have the trial in the daytime. They give the psak late in the day. The man is executed the next day. But there is a halacha that the Bezdin, the 23 members of the Bezdin who put him to death, have to stay up all night and re-debate the case and with an eye to finding a way to let the guy off. Okay? So, because it never happens really, and Ba'etzem Hadin, they could put him to death without doing that, we assume that knowledge he was convicted is tantamount to execution. But a case you had yesterday was when the guy broke out of jail during that night. And so he was not yet executed or may not have been recaught and been executed. Yet Bezdin said that is a theoretical case. Yet we still let the woman remarry on the word of someone who said we saw the conviction. So the Gemara here says, Dilma Boreach Shaini. Maybe it's an exception to the rule. And if he did get away, maybe they would not let her remarry. Taishma, let's try and prove up this case. Shma mi based in Shel Yisroel Shehu Oimrim, a person was present and heard the Jewish court declare, Ish Ploni Mace, Ish Ploni Naharek. So Mr. Schwartz died and Mr. Abramowitz killed him. Yisu as Ishto, we let his wife remarry. This is somebody who just heard the verdict. And we let his wife remarry. Mekum niktorisin shall avoidei kachavim. But if you hear the very executioner who carried out the death penalty from a Goyish court make a statement, Ish Ploni Mace, Mr. Abramowitz is dead, Ish Ploni Naharig, Mr. Abramowitz was executed. Okay? Al Yisu es Ishtu. We do not let his wife remarry unless we have even more evidence. Okay, so first question. Maybe the issue is, what is me is? When you, huh?
Sounds like a presidential.
Correct. Well, in other words, if you're dead to me, okay, you're not. I'm just picking on you. You're dead to me. Does not mean you're dead. Maybe when somebody says the convict is dead, means he was convicted. He's oimed l'skila. Okay, my mace, my neherag. What? Let's carefully define the word dead and the word executed. Okay, nahara. May elema mace mamish. If you say dead means he is physically dead, he's no longer alive. Nehereg mamish, and executed means he was really executed. But regarding the Goyish court, Amilo Yisu Esishto, why don't we let the woman remarry the widow? Time alone, because we've established in the past, both in this Gemara and in others, the whole Mesiach Lefitumo, anytime somebody who's not nogeya to the case, somebody casually mentions, I saw an ambulance pull up in Wolverton, and Rahman al-Itzlan, they brought the guy out in a body bag. So he is just telling you, giving you new news, so-and-so died, Rahman al-Itzlan. Hemune, we believe him, Yimehemne, and he's credible. So that would be enough to let his wife remarry. And that should apply to a Goyish court too. That's the rhetorical question here. Elalav, so what do we have to say? Mace, when the guy says he's dead, it means Yosei Lemus, that he is convicted and he's going to be taken out and killed. It doesn't mean necessarily that he's already dead. Naharog, he was executed. Yosei Laharog, Lehareg. He is about to be taken out to be executed. The Ketani, and we've learned the Bebezd in Israel, Yisa as Ishto, if it's a Jewish court and the same circumstances applied, we would allow the wife to remarry, because the assumption is that for sure, as long as if this was that night, but if it was the next night, the assumption is for sure he was killed that day. So the Gemara says, but that's problematic. So the Gemara says, Li'aylam, the truth of the matter is, Meis Mamish, dead means dead. V'neharag mamish, and executed means executed. O to ka'amar, to kavase gavi oivdei kachavim. And when you're discussing the acts of a non-Jewish court, we should say, we should really say, if somebody says, I heard the verdict, I saw them put the handcuffs on him and put the black thing on his face, that we should let his wife remarry. However, here is the problem. Hani Mealy, the guy in Wolverton who says, I saw them bringing out a body, he is a casual observer. He's not one of the EMT guys. He's not the guy's son. He's just a passerby. But in our case, Hani Mealy, where the man is credible because he has no skin in the game, he's not involved. But when the guy has skin in the game, remember we said it was the executioner who said it. Of de la'achzuke shikraihu. It is likely, or at least reasonably possible, that the executioner lied. The guy's family gets to the executioner, gives him a significant bribe. The executioner smears some animal blood on the axe and goes back and reports we killed him. Meanwhile, he snuck off. Because, or maybe the emperor freed him, but the goal of the Goyish occupation, this was the Roman occupation, was to appear invincible. So if the court declared him Chayav Misa, then even if he wasn't killed, it was in the court's best interest to swear up and down that he was. So that's why the executioner is not credible. Okay, that's one explanation of how Rav Yosef makes his ruling. Ikadamri, others explain it a little bit differently. Now we're approaching today's Gemara. Omer Rav Yosef lo shanu ela bebezdin shalavdei kachavim. We only say the possibility exists he's not dead if you're dealing with a non-Jewish court. Aval bebezdin shel Yisroel keven denafik le'dina tekatala. Once the Jewish court condemns him, the Iker Hadin, they do not have to review the case again. They could just let him get his last sleep, give him his last supper or whatever they give him, and take him out and stone him, okay, or other death penalty. So that's why a Jewish court is credible, because out of 1,000 cases, you won't find even one where they actually do change their mind. And Baker Hadin, they don't even have to go through the review. Amalei Abaya, so Abaya says, Bezdin shall Yisrael nami, efshar dechazuleis chusa. There is this theoretical outside chance that in a Jewish court during the midnight review, they will come up with a rationale to not execute him. So Abaya is saying, why don't we look for even more proof with a Jewish court as well as a Goyish court? If they do. So he says, the trial is a very extensive, drawn-out thing. The rulings are, if one of the judges sees the grounds to let him off, even if he's the youngest, he has to forcefully argue his position. They actually change seats so an onlooker can see how the court's swaying one way or the other. So kichazu leis chusa, Mekaime del Migmardina. Normally, not almost virtually in all cases, the court will find this loophole or this reason to exonerate him prior to the announcing of the death penalty. In unreasonable normal circumstances, they would not find during the midnight review grounds to let him off. So Lema Messiah. So let's say that going back to try and prove up Rabbi Yosef, who says there are two, each court is handled differently. There is a Mishnah. Kol makom sha'amdu shnayim v'yamru, whenever two witnesses literally stand and declare, me'idim anu es ish ploini, we testify that Abramowitz shenigmar dinu bebezdin shel ploini, we know that the court in Tel Aviv condemned Abramowitz to death. Uploni Adov, and they based their decision on two other guys who testified against him. Hare Zeyahare. That Mishnah says he has been executed. And we're not worried about the tiny, tiny theoretical possibility they could have overturned the case.
Isn't there a chance that she could marry, say, a half hour before he's actually killed?
No, you have to wait 3 months.
I don't believe he can, because he's omed la skila. And I'm drawing an analogy. I don't know if that answered clearly, but if a tree is condemned to be destroyed because it's an avodah zarah tree, you cannot use pieces of that tree for something because it has no shear. And if you need, okay, in other words, once it's condemned, it's dead. It may take 2 days to burn it down, but once it's condemned, it's considered as if it's dead. So a dead man can't get married. That would be how I would off the cuff respond.
Most Beis-Dins
But yeah,
rarely gave the capital punishment.
no, it never happened. It's a discussion in the Gemara. Is it called a bloody Beis-Din if it's once in 7 years or once in 70? But there were many more executions than that. Don't mislead yourselves, because over and above the Torah rules to assure the common good, to have tranquility in the land, a Beis-Din can put people to death even without evidence. Because there's a story in the Gemara where there were many violent crimes committed during the night. So one of the Tanoim went into a bar like close to lunchtime the next day. And anybody that looked tired, they assumed they were the ones up all night committing the crimes, and they killed them. So, and the king can put you to death for any reason he wants. We know that with David and his maybe paramour, maybe not, right? Bathsheba. So, okay. So now again, we're saying, but why over here is it different? So Dilma Boreach Shani, maybe the fact that he broke out of jail means that he knows he's guilty. Because if there's the slimmest chance that if he's really innocent, and there's the slimmest chance that they'll come up with a new ruling in the morning, he wouldn't have broken out. I'd have broken out. All right. Tashma. Now, so we still are not 100% there. Tashma, let's look at it again, and we're going to look at a brisa this time. Shma mi Beis-Din shel Yisrael shehu Imrim. We heard that a human being heard, a Jewish guy heard that the court in Tel Aviv put so and so to death. Ish ploni meis, ish ploni nerog. Schwartz was murdered and Abramowitz did it. Yesu es ishto, we allow the woman to remarry on that one person's statement. However, umi kumant terisim shalavoidik chavim, but if it's the goyish executioner, ish pliny mace, ish pliny nehereg, same old story, so and so is dead, so and so was executed. Al yisis ishto, we do not allow the widow, maybe widow, to remarry. My exact same Gemara, my mace, my nehera. What do the words mean? Elena mace, mamish v'nehereg mamish. If you say they literally mean he's dead or he was executed, the kava say gave avodik chavim. But with regard to goyish courts, Amilo Yisa Esish, so why not let his wife remarried? And Kaimalon, we already have a clear halacha, kol mesich lefitumo, hemone mehemne le. If someone testifies, I heard about it or I saw it, we believe them, even a goy. Ella lav. So what do we have to say? Mace yaitse lamos. Maybe the word mace means about to be dead. Naharag yaitse lahareg. That maybe the word yahareg means we're taking him out to kill him. Okay, the katani, and we learn Bezdin shall Yisrael, if it's a Jewish court, Yisu es ishto, we let her remarry. So the Gemara, it's exact same wording as before. Li'aylam meis mamish, the word is literal, dead means dead. Yahareg mamish, executed means executed. The kavase gabe avodik chavim, but when it comes to goyish courts, amai lo, why do we not believe the guy? Why do we not let her remarry? The kol mesiach lefi tumo hemune mehemne, because we really should believe him. He saw it or heard it, and we should believe him. Hani mili, the words that we believe him only apply the milsa delo shchichel, where the person is casually involved. He is not a party in any way, shape, or form to the transaction. But if the person is at all involved, and I would argue the executioner is probably more involved than anybody else, right? Of the Yachazuke Shikraihu. The Goyim are trying to show their invincibility, and therefore they will declare that we killed him, even if they took a bribe and didn't, or even if he escaped, they won't admit it. So that's why we don't trust the Goyish courts. The tiny fraction of cases where he's not killed is exceedingly greater with the Goyim than it is with the Jews, and it becomes something we have to have concern over. Next, Mishnah. Hamevi get Eretz Yisrael. If Ruvain is bringing a get within Eretz Yisrael on behalf of me to my wife, the chola, and he becomes sick, he's allowed to turn over his shlichus to a shlichus number two on his own behalf. Okay, we had that before, but now we're getting new material. It can depend on exactly how his shlichus was set up. Okay, so I'll give you some outside Gemara examples. If I say, take this to my wife. But my intent is for this to get to my wife. If I say, Reuven, you take this to my wife, my intent is that only Reuven do it. If I say to Reuven, take this to my wife, but don't give it to her unless she gives me back my favorite scarf. That's a condition. And now Reuven Mistama cannot transfer the shlichus because there's no understanding that I trust the guy that takes over for Reuven to guard my scarf properly. Okay, so those are just some cases. Okay, so im oimerlo, if the husband says tul li hamenu chafetz b'laini, if the husband says when you give her the get, take back my favorite scarf or my whatever it is, it's chafetz ploni, some object. Okay, lo yishalchenu biyad acher. Now he cannot transfer the shlichus because she'ein rotzono shehiyeh pikadno biyad acher. Because there's no evidence that the husband would be willing to trust that third person shliach to, and so that would exceed Reuven's ability to transfer because of the specific condition. Bring me back my scarf. Okay. Now Rav Kahana says something here that seemingly is unnecessary to say. And now the Gemara is going to say, why did he say it? I mean, Tanayim and Amarayim do not just throw things out. They're very careful in what they say. Amar Rav Kahana Cholatanan. The Mishnah says the guy was sick. Now, if you go back and you look at the Mishnah sure indeed does say the guy was sick. So now, if there's no condition, like bring back the scarf, the Mishnah says Reuven can give Bob the shlichus. He could hand him the get, and Bob could bring it to my wife. Don't go so fast. Okay, pshita. But that's obvious. What's the point of Rav Kahana telling me that? It says chala ketani. The word chala is in the Mishnah. So what is Rav Kahana adding by saying what he said? So mahu detema, what might you have thought? Hu adin afal gafta lo chala. That if Reuven decided to go to the movies, or Reuven was tired, and he could hand over the shlichus to Bob, and Bob could complete it. Hi, the katani chol, and the only reason that the Mishnah uses the word ill, arucha de milsat katani, because that is a normal circumstance in which he would turn over the shlichus, but not exclusive. That's what I might have thought. Kamash Malon. So Rav Kahana comes to tell me, no, the word choila in the Mishnah is exclusive. And the fact that Reuven's having trouble walking, or that Reuven wants to see the movie, that new movie that's in 3D, whatever it is, that's 5 hours long, and so he wants to give Bob the shlichus, he can't do that. Hey, chidami. So now that was a case where a sick guy turned over the shlichus to a third party. So now the Gemara wants to know what exactly is the circumstance here. If the husband says, take this get to my wife, the only thing on the husband's mind is getting the get to the woman as fast as possible. So if Reuven can find somebody who's faster than him, the husband would be happy with him transferring the shlichus, and he can do so, and we're not bound by the word choila. But somebody say something? If the husband says you, and now in parentheses, and only you, take this to my wife. Afilu cholanami lo. He could be in the hospital for 2 weeks, but he doesn't have the right to transfer the shlichus. Okay. Now, that's how Rav Kahana would look at this Mishnah. Okay. The Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. So now we want to label who the Tana is in this Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. If it's Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, afilu cholanami lo. Even if it says take, he would not go so far as even the Mishnah does. He would say, if you're given the job, you complete the job, even if you're sick. Okay? Afilu cholanami lo. Even if you're sick, you can't transfer the shlichus. The Sanya, I can prove that from a brisa. Get zel ishti, please take this get to my wife. This brisa says, the Tanakama, who's not Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, says, if I simply say, get this get to my wife, like that, get this get to my wife, then you could transfer the shlichus. If he says, at hoylech, get zel ishtu, you take this get. He cannot appoint a substitute, a shliach to. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer says, ben kach u ben kach, I don't care what he said, and I don't care what the conditions are. And hashaliach say shliach. I hope that a shliach cannot engage a second shliach. So now we've, by process of elimination, we've determined that our Mishnah is not Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. If you want, you could learn it this way. The guy simply says, get this get to my wife. And he gets the brisa allows you to transfer it only exclusively if you're sick. The e-boy same, and if you prefer in the second version, at hoylech, if the guy says you take it, v'chala, and you get sick, v'chala shan. What the guy made a healthy fellow his shliach, even though he said you take it, he wants to get to his wife. So he would be not displeased if you gave it to another shliach, and your shlichus allows you to transfer it under the extraordinary condition that you can't complete the shlichus because you're sick. The boy same, if you prefer Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, we could say the Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Okay, v'choyle shani. And again, he says that we're talking normal circumstances, but illness is both enough unusual and enough of an exception that he would allow you to transfer the shlichus. Tanakh, we learned in our Mishnah, Hamevi get the Eretz Yisrael. This talks about the get was going from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and the guy got sick. He could get somebody else to take the get the rest of the way. Raminu, I'll argue with that. If here you have the whole cup. Okay, if somebody says to two people, to new get leishti, get this get to my wife, or he says to three people, ksavu get v'tenu leishti, prepare a get on my behalf, and then make sure it gets to my wife. Hare elu yichtavu v'yitnu. Those three people should have the authority to prepare the get and send it to the wife. Now, because there are three, there are beis din. The ruling is normally, The pasuk says, write a get for your, ksav lo, write it for her. But you could transfer the authority to a bezdin, and the bezdin, on its authority, if one of them's a sofer, could write it, or engage a sofer to write it. But a shliach can't do that. Okay? So, einahu ein aval shliach lo. So this bezdin 3 could write it themselves or engage a sofer to write it on their behalf, but they could not appoint a shliach to go to Miami from here and get the sofer to write the get, because shliach can't write a get. Okay? Now, Omer, Abaya says Hassam, in the case and of the two, where the guy actually told them write the get, because we have to read that into the case of the two. He didn't just say, give a get to my wife. He said, I don't have a get. Get a get and get it to my wife. Triple get. You should like that. Okay. Amar Abaya Hassam, time of my. Why can't they appoint a substitute? Mishum bizayon debal. That this would be embarrassing to the man. Okay. They Mepharshim explain here. The husband is not very erudite. He does not know how to do safras, to shape the letters properly. And he doesn't want everybody to know that he's an ignoramus. So he takes 3 intimate friends who know him well. And he says, you guys be a bezdin and handle this for me confidentially. But if they appoint a shliach, now someone else knows. The only way to keep a secret is kill the guy you tell it to. So that would be an embarrassment. So that's the normal case. However, over here, where the agent was told to get the wife the get, okay, Paulo Cupid, he's not worried about his reputation. He's worried about giving her money. She has his credit card. He wants to get rid of her as quick as possible. So you weigh the different factors, and the factor of getting divorced as quickly as possible overwhelms any busha that might accrue to him. Now that's Abaya's answer. Rabba Omer Mishum Demile Ninu. If I say to you, Shraga Feivel, go write a get for me, what did I do?
Made it personally that I have to do it.
No, I did not.
No?
No, you think I made you a shliach. But words are not enough. When you sold your chumetz to the Rav, what did you do? You made a meshicha. You picked up his handkerchief or his pen or whatever he gave you. You made a kinyan. That enabled him to be the shliach. If you didn't do that, you still own the chumetz. He's not your shliach. Okay? Mile lo mim saran. The words alone, l'shliach. Words alone are not enough to create a shliach. So that was Rava's answer. What the guy said was, go take care of this for me. He didn't make. Now, somebody should now ask, Shraga Feivel, you're on. In the other cases, the guy simply said, Reuven, take this get to my wife. So where's the kinyan? He handed him the get. So he made a kinyan when he handed him the get. But over here, there's no get yet in existence. So he can't hand it to anybody. So he just used words, and words are not good enough. So my benayim, and in practical terms, how would you apply each of these rulings, and where might the circumstance be different? Ikabanaihu, here is what's different. Shaliach b'matana. I tell you, Shraga, please bring this chayfetz or write a document to transfer this chayfetz, it's a piece of land, I can't hand it to you, to Reuven. Okay? So according to the opinion that you can't make the shliach, you wouldn't be able to do it. But according to the opinion, it's an issue of embarrassment, you would be able to do it. Oh, but plukta the the Rav and Shmuel, and this dispute between Abai and Rava is very similar to a much earlier dispute, the beginning of the Amoraic period between Rav and Shmuel. Okay, Rav says Matana Einu to get that the rules of the way you can appoint a shliach are not at all like a get. And if I used words, maybe that would be fine. And Shmuel Aimer, Matana Harehu could get that any document, written document, except where indicated, or have the same basic rules. An IOU, a deed, a gift transfer document, they all basically have the same rules unless otherwise stated. Like we had a Mishnah that deeds and IOUs are okay to preprint, but not given. So you see, the general rules apply unless otherwise indicated. The im omer lo tul li hemenu chafetz ploini. What if the husband says, bring this get to the shliach, bring this get to my wife and get my favorite scarf from her? So we said that you can't swap out shliach. He can't make a shliach too, because maybe I don't trust Shraga Feivel with my favorite scarf. I only trust Zev. So I made him the shliach, and Shraga Feivel, you're going to have to take the cold because you can't put my scarf on your neck.
Trusting with the wife without the scarf.
What?
You're trusting him with the wife without
No, I'm trusting him with the get.
That's what I mean.
No, that's not trusting him with the wife. You're not allowed to trust someone with the wife. All right, weiter. Amaresh lekesh kan shana Rebbe. When Rebbe teaches this, ein hashliach rashai lahashil, that indicates that's based on a general rule that if you borrow or rent something from me, you're not allowed to sublet it. You're the tenant, you're not allowed to sublet, and I don't have to put a clause in the lease document. It's automatic. I'm renting it to you, you can't sublet it, okay? The ein hasaycher rashai lahaskir, nor can a renter rent it to another person. In other words, this is a standard rule. Amar lo Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan asks Reish Lakish a question. Zu afilu tikoinos shel beis rabban atinoikos shel beis rabban yoidin hotza. That's pasha. Even 5-year-olds know I can't lend this to you. I borrowed it from Yitzi. You can't play with it, right? That's my ball. You can't play with it. Ella, Zimnan, the Gita Nami Lohave. So what Rebbe is trying to tell us is that there are cases where a shliach can appoint another shliach with no effect to the get. And there are cases where if the shliach tries to appoint another shliach, the net effect is to invalidate the get. And you have to go through each case and examine each case to see what the ruling would be. Because we're making, since the husband, I don't know what I just did. If the husband gives the agent al tigursha elababayis if the husband says to the shaliach, when you get to my house, you can give the get to my wife in the living room on the ground floor. But if the woman's upstairs and the guy doesn't want to yell out and call her, so he runs up and gives her the get upstairs with the witnesses, it's not a valid divorce because it wasn't done where it was supposed to. The gar she'll be out, and he gives it to her upstairs. Al Tigorsha Ella be okay, he's not okay. Or I say to my shliach, when you give her the get, be very careful to hand it to her with your right hand. Okay? The Gersha Bismail. And instead, the shliach hands it to him with the left hand. No deal. She's not divorced. The Kula Alma, Hechi the Nafka Ape. Now, we're coming back to the scarf story. I said to Reuven, take this get to my wife, give it to her, and get my scarf or my $1 million bond, whatever it is. Okay? The heavy fits. But what happens if the woman jumps the gun? And Reuven knocks on the door. She opens, she sees Reuven. Oh, here's Mordechai's scarf. First, okay? V'hadar shalchami negita. And then, after he got the scarf, Reuven gives her the get. Okay? In that case, the Gita Ma'al Yahava. That get is the best possible perfect get. Okay? Even though they reversed the sequence. Keep plige, where would they argue? They would argue under these circumstances. Shakol minei chayfetz, get the scarf from my wife first. Vahader havla gita, and only after you have the scarf in hand should you give her the get. Okay, and vahader v'shakol minei chayfetz. And instead, Havele Gita, he gives her the get first. V'hadar shakol minei chayfetz, and later on. So in other words, the first case, the woman jumped the gun and caused the switch. In the second case, the shaliach disregarded his instructions and did it in the reverse order. The relevance is a shaliach is not allowed to change his shlichus. If I say to you, jump 3 times and then get me coffee, and I make a kinyan, and you're my shliach, and you only jump twice, that's not my coffee.
That's why we say shliach adam kamosa.
Yeah, but that's all right. We do say that. You're right. I don't know what the relevance is, except that if I were doing, okay, the relevance is if I were doing it, I'd give her the get and get the scarf. If I get the scarf first and then I wouldn't do that. I know what I want to do. So the shliach is not carrying out my instructions. He's breaking his shlichus. And he's no longer a shliach, and therefore the get is no good. Exactly. Right. That's correct. If you do not do exactly what your instructions were, you're not a shliach. It's not what's the end result. It's the technicality of you're using a shliach. In any event, the kol shekain bishlucho. So certainly, the Gemara says, or Rav Yochanan Pasalba, Rav Yochanan says it's absolutely no good. If the individual shliach doesn't do exactly what he's supposed to, v'chol shekain b'shlucho. And certainly, if he appointed a second guy, Okay, v'reish lekesh machshir v'shlucho. And reish lekesh, like you, would say, what's the difference? It's perfectly good. V'chol shechein bo. And certainly, the second shliach who did not hear the instructions directly would not be held to such a strict standard. Okay, here up until now, we've been talking about a shliach possibly appointing another shliach because it's going from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem or Lud to Jerusalem. In other words, within Eretz Israel. Where, bottom line, if there's a shaila about the validity to get, you could easily enough round up the witnesses or otherwise verify the get, like by comparing signatures, etc. What if the shliach is bringing the get from Spain? Okay. Maybe get Medinas Hayam, if the get is being brought by a shliach from overseas, v'chala, and the shliach gets ill. I say shliach bebezdin mishalchoi. Here, remember, if it's moving in Eretz Yisrael, there's no need for the shliach to make a statement to Bezdin. I saw it written, I saw it signed. But here we're on a boat. And the ruling is, we had 3 before Mishnayos ago. He has to testify in a court. I was a personal witness to both the writing and the signing of this get. So how can he transfer his shlichus to anybody else? Right? Impractical. Because he doesn't have a time machine to bring the guy back to Spain to watch. So what he does is, they create a bezdin. If he's in Rome, they use an established bezdin. If he is on the boat, they make a bezdin arai, a temporary bezdin. And that bezdin certifies the get. He makes the statement, and that bezdin writes on it, we certified this get. We had that before. And now the bezdin appoints a shliach to get it the rest of the way to Israel. Okay, that's what the Mishnah said. The Omer b'fneihem b'fnei nichtav b'fnei nichtam. He certifies that he was present at the writing and signing to that bezdin. The ein shliach achron tzorich liomer b'fnei nichtav b'fnei nichtam. And the new shliach 2, does not have to swear about the get. He has to swear that he was appointed as a shliach by the bezdin. El Aimer shliach bezdin ani. I am a representative of the bezdin. Okay, Gemara. Amr la Rabbanim la avime berei de Rabavuhu. Rabavuhu was a Baki in Gittin. So other rabbis went to his son Avimi and said, do me a favor. Boy, me name Rabavuhu, go ask the Tati a shaila about a get. Shliach to shliach. Can shliach 1 appoint shliach 2? We learned that there are ways to do that. Can shliach 2 appoint a shliach 3? Mashve shliach alo. Can shliach 2, the one appointed by the bezdin, if it's on the boat? Let's stick to the boat. Can he transfer the shlichus to a shliach 3? Okay. Amar lahu, Avimi says, halal taboy lahu. That you don't have to ask that question. That's a simple one. Even I could answer that one. The Miktani, we learned in our Mishnah, ein hashliach ha'acharon, shliach number 2 does not have to swear that this is a valid get, right? That I saw it written, I saw it signed, okay? Machlal, the mashre shliach. So all he has to do is say, I'm a designee of the Bezdin. So Shliach 3 could say the Bezdin designee transferred to me. That's Avimi's answer. If you really want to ask my Tati a really good question, Ki Moshve Shliach, when the guy appoints the second Shliach, the Bezdin appointed Shliach 2, who effectively becomes a Shliach 1. Everybody get that? Yeah. Okay. So therefore, can he make a Shliach to remember? We said if the husband appoints Shliach 1, Shliach 1 under circumstances, some circumstances may appoint a Shliach 2. So if there's a Shliach 3 who the Bezdin appoints, so he becomes a Shliach 1 from the Bezdin, can he appoint the Shliach 2, even though from the husband's perspective, he's Shliach 4?
With another Bezdin.
What?
With another Bezdin.
Or does he need another Bezdin? Can he do it on his own? Or does he have to round up a Bezdin? So no matter how many times it happens, there are always a Shliach 1 of the Bezdin. Okay? Okay. Ki mashve Shliach bebezdin. Oh, afilu shaloi bebezdin. Does he have to create or find the Bezdin to make a new Shliach? Or can he just make a Shliach 2 als Bezdin? Okay? So that's what Avimi says they should ask his father. So they say, we don't need to ask your father that. We know that. Amrule, they say to him, Haloba in a land. That we don't have to ask the Mikatani because we have a mission that says, Ella Omer Shliach Bezdin Ani. The guy says, I am the representative of the court. So every subsequent Bezdin has to say, I am a representative of the court. So each time the new Shliach, the Bezdin Shliach, makes a new Shliach, he has to do it with the koyach of a Bezdin. So that question is not a real question. Okay, so that's the end of that little Maisa. Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak Masnei Hacha. Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak tells that story a little bit differently. Amrule Rabbanan Avime Bereit Rab Avuhu, that Avimi, they ask Avimi to ask the father, boy mine, Berebi Avuhu, go ask the Tati, Shliach to Shliach, Ki Mashvin Shliach. Let's go back to Israel this time, where the Shliach had the right to appoint a Shliach 2. Can Shliach 2 appoint a Shliach 3? Okay? Bebezdin or Shalom Bebezdin. If Shliach 2 wants to appoint a new Shliach, does he need a Bezdin or can he just make a Shliach 3? Amar lahu, Avimi says to boy lahu, don't ask that. Ask instead, Shliach be'alma. Can Shliach, is it even theoretically possible? Bezdin, no Bezdin, is it even theoretically possible for there be a chain of Shluchim? Or is it 1 and 2 ad kan? Okay? So, Amrule, the rabbis answer, Halakum aboilan, we don't have to ask that question. The Tanan we already know. Ein hashliach acharon, the last shliach in the chain, does not have to say, I saw it written and signed. Meklal, the shliach must say shliach. So since he doesn't have to say, and now this is in Israel, so he doesn't have to say anything. So mistama, you could have 45 shluchim. It doesn't matter as long as the get gets to the lady. Okay? But if you want to ask, ki kam boilan, here's what we should ask. But Bezdin o shaloi bezdin, does this chain of ongoing list of shluchim after number 2 require of the koyach of a bezdin or not? Okay, so Amilahu Abimi says, Nami lo tavoila. Look, that you don't have to ask either. Because the Mishnah explained that whatever shliach is at the end of the line has to say, Omer shliach bezdin ani, that I am acting on the authority of a court. So it's obvious that after shliach 2 who can act on the authority of shliach 1, after that you need a bezdin. Okay. Omer Rava says, Shliach be'eretz Yisrael oisa kama shluchin. Fact of the matter is, in Eretz Yisrael, where the shliach doesn't have to say anything, because we could verify the will by to get by other means. You could have an endless chain of shluchim. Omer Ravashi im. Now, the problem here is the longer the list, the more likely it is that somebody on that list dies. Okay? So, im meis rishon, if the first shliach, who is the one who handed it to the second, etc., if he dies, batlu kulan, you break a chain, you no longer have a chain. And a dead man can't appoint the shliach. Okay, and therefore, batlu kulan, all the other shluchim are inappropriate, and therefore the get itself is puzzle. Okay, Amar Ravashi says, Ha Abba Bikatnusa, my father, the great Ravashi, when he was a young whippersnapper, said, Elu meisbal, if the husband died before the wife got there, midei mishasha ispahu, there's no longer any relevance to any of these shluchim, because she's an almana, she's not a gerusha, and the get is meaningless. Okay, and if there's no knowledge that the husband died until 5 months later, retroactively, the alleged divorcee is not one. And you'd have to ascertain the exact date that he died and what her subsequent activities were concerning that date, whether it's okay or she gets put to death, right? Kulahu makayach mandikatani, because every shliach, the only reason that he exists is because the husband initiated the chain. And if he's dead, that's the end of that. Mikayach the Baal Katana. Ka'asu. Therefore, if the husband is alive, then the chain is taut, and each link in the chain, all the subsequent shluchim have a kayach. Okay? But if the husband's dead, the authority of being a shliach terminates, and everyone in the chain is no longer or had no longer been a valid shliach, and the get is invalid, and you got to figure out dates, etc., etc. Now, a story. Hahu Gavra, there was a fellow, L'Shadar Lo Gita L'Bistahu. He was sending a get to his wife, Al Yidei Shliach. Aimer Shliach, the Shliach turns to the husband before he leaves, and he says, Lo Yadana La, I don't know your wife from a hole in a wall. Jerusalem's a big city. When I get there, how am I going to find your wife? You know, she got it. Remember, they had a fight. She moved out. She's somewhere in Jerusalem. We know she's in Jerusalem, but we don't know her address. I don't know what she looks like. How can I find her? So the husband says, Omelay, the husband says, I got an idea. Zil Yahave la Abar Bar Man Yume. Go to Abba Bar Man Yume. He knows my wife. The Ihu Yadallah, he knows my wife, and make him a shliach too. Velezil, velespe nahala, and he will find her and give her the get. Okay, now this is the story that happened. So the agent went, knocked on doors in Jerusalem, took out an ad in the Jerusalem Times, but he can't find him. He goes through, he makes all reasonable efforts, and he can't find him. Ashkacha l'Rav Avuhu the Rebbe Chanina bar Papa v'Rebbe Yitzchak Nafcha. But he does find Rav Avuhu and Reb Chanina and Reb Yitzchak, who become a bezdin. Okay?
Just the two of them?
No, the three of them. Abuhu is one, Chanina is two, and Yitzchak is three. The Yosef Reb Safra Gavayhu, and another fourth Rebbe, Reb Safra, was in this room with those three. Amrule. So the three rabbis constituted a bezdin, and they said to the shliach, Meiser milach kaime didan, transfer your shlichas to us. We will have the authority of a bezdin. So eventually, Abba Bar Minumi will show up somewhere. He'll go to shul Monday morning. He'll become available. And we will give him the get. Now he would not be a shliach 3, he'd be a shliach 1 because of bezdin. And he will act as our bezdin and give it to the lady. Okay, so Reb Safra, who was sitting there, he was the fourth party in the room. He challenges all this. Okay, Amar lahu Reb Safra ha shliach shelo litein legershuin hu. This sofer, this shliach, was not empowered to divorce the lady. He was empowered to give the get to the third fellow who was empowered to divorce the lady. In other words, his shlichus was get it from Lud to a certain individual in Jerusalem. That was his job. And this is Erwin's question again. He did a different job. He gave it over to a bezdin. He didn't give it to that guy. Okay? He doesn't have the authority to make sure she gets divorced. He has the authority to give it over to Menumi, or whatever his name, Abba Bar Menumi. Kafchinahu Rav Safra l'talsa Rabbanan semuchet. So we see that Rav Safra's comment chopped the legs off the other rabbis because he pointed out this case. So were they right, or is he right? Amar Rav Ashi b'maika kafchinahu. How did he undercut them? He's not right. Why? Because did the husband say,